When I step into a book, I step out of my skin and I step away. Stories for me stop the flow of time, and writing saves the present moment. Books continue long after the space and time of their existence. Literature succeeds in remapping, in literary terms anyway, the body that we live inside. We have our own internal topography, and unless we are willing to go out and be different and get lost, then everything becomes old and stale and creaky. Personally, I love writing from a variety of voices. I don't know why, but it's true. I will tell you a little story about my daughter Isabella. When I was writing Let the Great World Spin, there's a 38-year-old hooker in the book. And I was sitting in my office writing away from the point of view of this 38-year-old hooker, and the little note slipped in under my door, and Isabella said, "Dad, let's go play soccer in Central Park." And I remember thinking, I can't play soccer in Central Park right now because I'm turning a trick under the Major Deegan right now. And I thought about slipping a note in under the door, "Give me 5 minutes." And then I thought in my character's voice it'd be even funnier if I said, "Give me 3 minutes." But to step into another voice for me is the ultimate privilege. I tend to believe that it's a necessity for polyphony and symphony in our world. The great English author, did I say that? Yeah, the great author, John Berger, says, "Never again will a single story be told as if it were the only one." So the ability to see from different angles is crucial to the literary experience. It's also crucial to the philanthropic experience. We cannot understand otherness if we don't make an attempt to step into somebody else's shoes. Part of the joy of tonight is that people are here to celebrate the fact that we are all available and willing to step into somebody else's shoes. And the more we choose to see, the more we actually will see. I will tell you that I spent many years writing. I've been writing now for 25 years. And when I first went to festivals and I first went to events, I didn't really appreciate what was going on. My mother always told me it was polite to write notes afterwards and so on. And I tried to do that for a while, and I did do that for a while. And I do tend to thank the people that are there. But I've been involved now with a charity organization called Narrative 4, which is a story exchange organization that if I have time I'll tell you about later on. But what I learned from that, going to Colorado, going to places around the country, is that there is so much incredible work that goes on behind the scenes of these organizations. And the people who do this for small salaries, sometimes not given enough praise, they are the heroes of not only the literary world, not only the philanthropic world, but also the social world. They are making a difference in an extraordinary way. I have learned that. It's a huge thing. So, and you know, the organization today is wonderful to see. And I hope, and I know you're all here because you realize that. But again, these stories have to be told over and over and over again in order for them to make absolute sense. I think a round of applause for all the people who organized all this. I think that there is a ritual transaction that goes on between writer and reader. There's also a ritual transaction that goes on between non-profit organization and person who benefits from it, that expands the lungs of the world. I am truly amazed by how many good people there are in the world. It's difficult sometimes to write about because happiness writes white, right? It's like taking white ink and throwing it against a white page. Where's the relief? But you have to do it. We have to look at the world and say, be available for the moment of goodness that people are involved in. We have to step inside a moment, become alive in another body and another time, and we must make that empathetic leap into the realm of the other. And so it is that I say that we must embrace difficulty. What is this about? For me, this is about radical empathy. This is about the ability to be remarkable citizens, and also to be the people who understand what it means to be other. I don't think that I need to tell you this, but we need our books, we need our art, we need our social activism, we need our humanities in order to survive. And we need our artworks too to work in tandem with our actions. All those literacy organizations, all those organizations that are working for young mothers, all those organizations that are working with kids who don't have the advantages that we grew up with. This to me is the absolute heart of fearless hope coupled with the idea of radical empathy. This is how we find ourselves. We find ourselves in books, and also we find ourselves in our actions on the street. I had the most incredible thing happen to me in January of this year. I got a letter from a teacher in Newtown, Connecticut. His name was Lee Keelock. And he said to me, we're looking for a book in order for our students to negotiate their grief about what had happened in Sandy Hook in December. And this thing broke my heart. And he said, would you come up and speak to the students? And I said immediately, yes, I would come up and speak to the students. I had to speak to the students. And so I got in a car in April, and I drove up from New York to Sandy Hook. And I went into that big high school and into the classrooms, and I was thinking, what in the world am I going to say to these kids? And I realized I had very little to say, because they were the ones who started speaking and telling me their stories. And they had navigated it all through the art that I had presented to them, and through other poetry and all sorts of things. But they were able to express their terrible grief and also their shining optimism about the world. And one of them said to me, I'm there to look in the very, very, very darkest corners to find out what light means. It was almost like a line from Brodsky, that the darkness makes the light available. And I was stunned that a 15, 16-year-old girl would be able to say this to me after she had gone through all of this difficulty. But why was it that happened? It was because a teacher was there who was able to think and to talk about experience and negotiate it then through the mirror or the mirrors or the realm of art. And that whole day I spent in classrooms, and I really didn't say a thing of note or worth, except that I learned how to listen to them. And then I came away an absolutely changed person. And I think that this is what you guys do. I think it's what we must do. We must do as a country. We must do as a society. We must be able to look at others' experiences and negotiate them through various prisms, and in particular the prism of art, humanities, literature. Do I believe in, say, humanities as a way to shape history? I thought about this today as I was coming along. I think it's an interesting question. You know, is it powerful enough that we can shape history through the humanities? And I think so. I think that if I didn't believe in the humanities, I might have to believe in the gun. And I don't believe in the gun. So there's only one way for me to go, or rather two. One is towards despair, and the other is towards stories and storytelling. So I would propose that we use literature and art and the humanities as a home to go to. I would also propose that we learn to get lost in all sorts of ways. Throw away the GPS and come back to some sort of properly engaged citizenry. Now, in all of this, inspires in me a hope of the redemptive. And the Red Sox have just started. And there is some redemption there. But I am going to just, I'm just going to read a couple of passages from this novel, Let the Great World Spin, which is the one that the kids in Newtown, Connecticut read, and which you guys have on your table there tonight too. Just to give you a little idea of the book, not to go on too long, and to talk about the possibility of the redemptive. First of all, I will tell you that it takes place in 1974 when Philippe Petit did a tightrope walk across the World Trade Center towers. This is a book about 9/11. It's also a book about grace and recovery and decency. But the first scene takes place in August 74 when Philippe Petit is about to take a walk across the World Trade Center towers. Way above there was a movement. In his dark clothing every twitch counted. He folded over, a half thing bent, as if examining his shoes like a pencil mark, most of which had been erased. Even those who had wanted the man to jump felt the air knocked out. They drew back and they moaned. A body was sailing out into the middle of the air. He was gone. He'd done it. Some blessed themselves, closed their eyes, waited for the thump below. The body twirled and caught and flipped, thrown around by the wind. And then a shout sounded across the watchers. A woman's voice. God, oh God, it's a shirt. It's just a shirt. It was falling, 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 yes, a sweatshirt fluttering, and then their eyes left the clothing in midair because high above the man had unfolded from his crouch, and a new hush settled over the cops above and the watchers below, a rush of emotion rippling amongst them because the man had arisen from the bend holding a long, thin bar in his hands, jiggling it, testing its weight, bobbing it up and down in the air, a long black bar so pliable that the ends swayed, and his gaze was fixed on the far tower, still wrapped in scaffolding like a wounded thing waiting to be reached. And now the cable at his feet made sense to everyone, and whatever else it was, there would be no chance they could pull away now. No morning coffee, no conference room cigarette, no nonchalant carpet shuffle. The waiting had been made magical, and they watched as he lifted one dark slippered foot like a man about to enter warm grey water. The watchers below pulled in their breath all at once. The air felt suddenly shared. The man above was a word they seemed to know, though they had not heard it before. Out he went. And there are numerous characters in this book, but I'm just going to read two more small sections. And this next section is exactly that time when I had my daughter slip the note in under the door. And I don't do a good Bronx accent. And this is the point of view of an African American woman. But I want you to realize from the first sentence that this is my cameo walk-on role into my own novel. Second sentence, actually. She says, I got a trick I thought I recognized. He was young but bald on top. My wife said, you're in this novel. The bald spot was very white, like a little ice rink on top of his head. He got a room in the Waldorf Astoria. The first thing he did was he pulled the curtains tight and he fell on the bed and he said, let's get it on. I was like, wow, do I know you, honey? He looked at me hard and said, no. Are you sure I said all cutesy and shit? You look familiar. No, he said, real angry. Hey, take a chill pill, honey, I said. I'm only axing. So I pulled off his belt and I unzipped him and he moaned, oh yeah, 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 like they all do. And he closed his eyes and he kept on moaning. And then I don't know why, but I figured it out. It was the guy from the weather report on CBS. Except he wasn't wearing his toupee. That was his disguise. So I finished him off and got myself dressed and I waved goodbye, but I turned at the door and said to him, hey man, it's cloudy in the east with the wind at 10 knots and a chance of snow. There I was cracking myself up. And on page 237 of the book, there is a photograph of Philippe Petit walking the World Trade Center towers. And in the background, this was taken in 1974. If it's at your table, you can have a look. It looks like there is a plane about to smash into the towers there. And this little section is from the point of view of the hooker's granddaughter, which is in 2006. And hopefully it reflects some of my philosophy. And then I will finish off my speech and let you go to watch the Red Sox win tonight. This is a section called Roaring Seaward and I Go. October 2006. She often wonders what it is that holds that man so high in the air. What sort of ontological glue? Up there in his haunted silhouette, a dark thing against the sky, a small stick figure in the vast expanse, the plane on the horizon, the tiny thread of rope between the edges of the buildings, the bar in his hands, the great spread of space. The photo was taken on the exact same day her mother died. It was one of the reasons she was attracted to it in the first place. The sheer fact that such beauty had occurred at the same time. She had found the photo, yellowing and torn, in a garage sale in San Francisco 4 years ago, at the bottom of a box of photographs. The world delivers its surprises. She had bought it, got it framed, kept it with her as she went from hotel to hotel, a man high in the air while a plane disappears, it seems, into the edge of the building, one small scrap of history meeting a larger one, as if the walking man were somehow anticipating what would come later. The intrusion of time and history, the collision point of our stories. We wait for the explosion, but it never occurs. The plane passes, the tightrope walker gets to the end of the wire, things don't fall apart. And it strikes her now as an enduring moment, the man alone against scale, still capable of myth in the face of all other evidence. And I suppose if I was to boil my philosophy down for this evening, especially after the governor's beautiful comments, that I do think that we are still capable of myth in the face of all other evidence. In a society where increasingly it seems that too many people are coming indoors, closing the curtains, hiding away, relying on the GPS, there are still a lot of really brave people who are out and about and willing to help see things change. I love to see that. I think it is an extraordinary thing. I think part of what makes this country truly splendid is the fact that it believes in otherness. Is this all idealistic? You're damn right it's idealistic. And is there anything wrong with idealism? Is it better to be a cynic? Cynics have it easy. Cynics have their world neatly folded and prepared. Cynics, in my experience, are not very agile or muscular at all. They sit in the corner of every party you've ever been in and they moan. You've seen them there. Some of them are smart, yeah, but they're not smart enough. They're cursed by their own rigidity. They're limited by the notion that human nature itself is limited and that goodness cannot occur. I think optimists, who are often accused of being sentimental, are much smarter and more fluid than the cynics. I think cynics live in the immediate cloud of their own sentimentality. I do believe that good optimists have to get down and dirty and understand what's going on in the world. They have to look around them in the world and recognize where the problems are. And then they have to say, well, there's a problem, and now we have to go away and solve it. I hope we're all in this together, have to have the courage of your own potential failure in relation to all of this. A good optimist has to be able to go toe to toe with any cynic. And a good optimist has to be able to beat the cynic at his or her own cynicism. That's a hard job because the world is tough and brutal. But then you have to walk away because being a cynic is cheap and easy. And I think that if we have anything at all, it is the courage that we can develop to embrace difficulty and to embrace some sort of potential failure. I look at what this organization has done for the past 40 years, and I just think it's tremendous. I wish it were available in my own home country for everything that you guys do. I wish it was available all around this country. You people have done so much, and it's obvious to me that there's so much still more to be done. But the fact of the matter is that I feel very lucky. I did have that happy childhood. I was given so much. I spent most of my life trying to paint the darkness and then trying to go out and find some available light. I know that you guys do it. I thank you for it, and I wish you the very best of luck tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
In honor of that spirit of optimism, we have, for the honorary member of Red Sox Nation, a cap to take back.
It's green as well.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all, and good night.